Hey everyone, welcome to today's video where we're diving into one of the most exciting parts of Path of Exile 2, the Ascendancies. With the game's equal bringing back the complex passive tree, gear systems, and all the mind-blowing builds, it's safe to say that picking the right Ascendancy is a big deal. We all know how frustrating it can be to mess up your first character and have to start over. So, to help make your decision a little easier, I've put together this Ascendancy tier list, breaking down the best options to get you off to a smooth start in the game's early access. Choosing the right Ascendancy isn't just about picking something that sounds cool, it's about setting yourself up for success. Some are stronger right out of the gate, offering solid options for both offense and defense, while others might take a little more finesse and planning. But don't worry, I've got you covered. In this video, we'll go through the pros and cons of each, so you'll know exactly which Ascendancy to pick to make your Path of Exile 2 experience as fun and smooth as possible. Let's get into it. I'm quickly moving on to the video and I'm ranking Ascendancies in Path of Exile 2. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of tier list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching.
My friends, only 0.1% of viewers subscribe. If you like this type of content, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you in advance for your support.
The Ascendancies in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Chronomancer, Acolyte of Chayula, and Pathfinder. Alright, let's get real for a second. There are some Ascendancies in Path of Exile 2 that make you scratch your head and wonder if they really belong in the game. Like, you want them to work so badly, but in the end, they just leave you disappointed. Let's dive into some of the C tier Ascendancies and see why they're more meh than wow. First up, we've got the Chronomancer, a class that sounds like it could be an absolute game changer, right? Time manipulation, offensive spells, lingering on the battlefield, all that good stuff. But here's the catch, while you're busy laying down spells and thinking you're the master of time, your positioning needs to be on point, or you're in for a world of hard hurt. The Temporal Rift Ascendancy helps a little by boosting your mobility, but if you mess that up, you could find yourself stuck in the wrong place at the wrong time, and boom, there goes all that hard work. It's a cool idea, but with all the squishiness and lack of survivability, the Chronomancer just doesn't feel like it holds up to other, more versatile classes. Next on the chopping block is the Acolyte of Chayula. Now don't get me wrong, it can dish out some solid damage if you build it right, but the class has some serious synergy issues. See, while the monk is all about mixing elements like cold and lightning, the acolyte is off in its own corner, obsessed with darkness. And honestly, trying to make that darkness mechanic work just feels like you're splitting your focus way too much. The real kicker though, the trade-off between darkness and spirit just isn't worth it. You're better off sticking with skills that have more staying power instead of juggling these mechanics. It's a class that demands a lot of your time to get right, but in the end, it feels like you could be doing better with a more straightforward approach. Then we have the Pathfinder, a class that seems super interesting at first with all its concoctions and ailment dealing potential. Who doesn't love poisoning, bleeding, and causing chaos on the battlefield, right? The problem here is that while ailments can be fun, they don't hit as hard as they used to. The DPS is lower than what other classes can bring to the table, and when you combine that with clunky gameplay and the fact that Pathfinder doesn't have the best survivability, it just doesn't feel as viable in the current meta. The class feels like it's trying to do too much without actually excelling in any one area, making it an unfortunate pick for most players. It's not just about raw damage either. A lot of these C-tier Ascendancies really struggle with synergy and feel like they don't complement each other the way they should. Like, you've got this idea in your head that with a little tweaking, you can make them work, but then you find out they don't really fit in with the rest of your build or gameplay style. With the Chronomancer, Acolyte of Chayula, and Pathfinder, you're constantly balancing on the edge of frustration, trying to make these odd combinations of skills work, and it just feels like too much effort for too little reward. And that's the thing, these Ascendancies require a lot of investment. And for what? A little bit of fun for a lot of pain? You want them to be great because the concept sounds fun on paper, but when it comes down to actual gameplay, they just don't deliver in the way other, higher tier Ascendancies do. At the end of the day, you're better off looking elsewhere if you want something that's both fun and practical in Path of Exile 2. It's like you're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, it's just not gonna work. So, while it's always nice to dream about how these classes could be awesome with some tweaks or buffs in the future, for now, they're stuck in the C tier. But hey, who knows? Maybe with a future update, we'll see some changes that make these Ascendancies worth taking seriously. Until then, you're probably better off looking at something with a little more polish and power behind it. Keep grinding though, you never know what might get buffed next. The Ascendancies in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Blood Mage and Witch Hunter. Alright, let's dive into some of the more quirky Ascendancies in Path of Exile 2 and talk about the Blood Mage and Witch Hunter. These two classes aren't exactly your go-to for every build, but with the right setup, they can definitely pack a punch, or a crit. Let's start with the Blood Mage. Now, this Ascendancy is kind of like a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you've got the insane synergy with crit builds, but on the other hand, it's got this really odd mechanic with life remnants that makes it a bit tricky for some of the more popular witch builds like minions or duties. The big kicker here is that Sanguimancy, the key Ascendancy node, drains your life equivalent to the mana you spend, but it also allows you to overcharge your life using life remnants dropped on kills and crits. Sounds pretty cool, right? But this comes with a catch, it really doesn't jive well with every playstyle. Now, if you're building around crits though, that's where Blood Mage truly shines. You get boosts to life, critical hit chance, and crit damage, and those sweet life remnants will keep you tanky while you wreck enemies. The catch? The Ascendancy doesn't really leave much room for creativity. You're kinda locked into this one build idea, but hey, if you love crits and want to stack life for days, this could be your go-to for a solid tanky DPS build. It's definitely niche, but if you're into that playstyle, you're gonna feel like an unstoppable force. Switching gears to the Witch Hunter, this class is all about damage, and I mean big damage. You've got Ascendancy nodes that let you cull enemies with every attack, plus a fun little perk that causes enemies to explode in AoE damage when they're defeated. Talk about some satisfying carnage, right? But here's the thing, it's a glass cannon. The Witch Hunter can dish out some serious punishment, but when it comes to surviving, well, let's just say it's a bit of a struggle. The only real survivability node in the Ascendancy is a barrier that shields you from elemental damage, but it does come with a big downside. It cuts your evasion and armor by 50%, so while the Witch Hunter can feel like a powerhouse when everything's going right, it can also be a fragile mess if you're not careful. If you're playing solo in the late game, you might find yourself biting the dust a lot faster than you'd like, especially against those nasty bosses who can drain your health with a single attack. In a group though, you'll be melting everything in sight, so it's definitely a blast if you can balance your risks and rewards. So there you have it. Two Ascendancies with a lot to offer, but you've got to know what you're getting into. Whether you're critting your way to victory with the Blood Mage or blowing things up with the Witch Hunter, both are a lot of fun in their own right. The Ascendancies in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Titan, Stormweaver, Gemling Legionnaire, Deadeye, and Warbringer. So, you're diving into Path of Exile 2 and wondering which Ascendancies are worth your time in the A tier. Well, let's talk about some of the powerhouses that might just make your next build absolutely incredible, but with a few quirks along the way. First up, we have the Titan class. Now, the Titan's all about ramping up your warrior's offensive and defensive potential, making it a great pick if you're looking to crush things with aftershocks or dish out heavy stuns. And let's not forget Hulking Form, one of the best skill nodes in the game, which just makes all your passive bonuses even juicier. The catch here? Outside of Hulking Form, a lot of the Titan's other nodes feel, well, a bit niche. No shiny new active skills either, so if you're after fresh gameplay, you might feel a little boxed in. Moving on, let's talk about the Stormweaver, a class that really makes the sorceress shine. If you love applying ailments and wreaking havoc with AoE damage and crowd control, this one's a no-brainer. Constant Gale on the first Ascendancy grants Arcane Surge, which boosts your offensive output and pairs perfectly with late game nodes like Shaper of Storms and Tempest Caller. That said, be prepared for a rocky start. The Stormweaver can dish out insane damage, but their survivability, especially early on, leaves a lot to be desired. Definitely a high risk, high rewards type of character. Next, we've got the Gemling. If you love flexibility and customization, this is the Legionnaire class for you. It's all about enhancing your gems and boosting synergy. Want more skill slots? You got it. Need to use the same support gem across different skills? Done. The Gemling's Ascendancy nodes make it super adaptable, and the added bonus of increased elemental resistance for a range class makes surviving a little less of a headache. It's not a damage powerhouse, but it's perfect for players who love playing with their builds and making sure everything flows smoothly. Now, let's talk about the Deadeye. This class isn't here to tank hits, but it will make sure you're dishing out some serious physical damage while zipping around the map. The synergy between Gathering Winds and Endless Munitions is perfect for that run and gun playstyle, letting you shoot from a distance and move quickly. And if you're all about frenzy charges, Avidity will have your back. But let's be real, the Deadeye's survivability isn't its strong suit. you'll need to stack up on evasion and keep your distance, or things can go south fast. Let's shift gears to the Warbringer, which is all about supporting your warrior with war cries, shield break, armor break, and even totems. If you're a fan of those mechanics, this is your go-to class. Plus, it's got solid survivability with nodes like Jade Heritage and Turtle Charm that help you tank a bit more. However, the Warbringer isn't exactly a damage machine. You won't find much in the way of raw damage output outside of armor break related skills. If you're looking to dish out massive DPS, this class might feel a little lacking in that department. But hey, not everything is about pure damage, right? Sometimes you need to lean into strategy and support. That's where the Gemling really shines. Its ability to provide a range of buffs and resistances makes it a unique pick for players who like to think outside the box. Sure, you won't be nuking bosses left and right, but the added utility makes it worth considering, especially if you're playing with a group and want to focus on team synergy. As for the Stormweaver, if you're the type who enjoys chaos and big explosions, this class will have you grinning from ear to ear. The sheer power of its elemental builds is unmatched, but remember, you'll need to stay on your toes. With its low survivability, you'll have to make sure you're constantly moving and keeping enemies at bay. Finally, the Deadeye isn't just about damage, it's about making sure you never stop moving. If you want a class that rewards quick reflexes and strategic positioning, this is your pick. Just don't expect to tank hits, you're more about hitting hard and fast, then getting out of the way before the enemy has a chance to retaliate. So, there you have it. A-tier Ascendancies that offer flexibility, power, and a bit of fun. They might not be perfect, but they're definitely worth your time if you like a mix of strategy, damage, and survivability. Whether you're after a big hit, or just want to mess with enemies and stay alive in style, these Ascendancies have something for everyone. The Ascendancies in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Invoker and Infernalist. Let's talk about two of the most exciting Ascendancies in Path of Exile 2, the Invoker and the Infernalist. These classes bring some serious power to the table, but they each have their own unique style and set of challenges. So, if you're looking for something that can totally wreck bosses but requires some finesse, you're in for a treat. Starting with the Invoker, this Ascendancy is all about dealing massive damage, and I mean massive. If you're looking to melt enemies and bosses alike, the Invoker is your go-to choice. Its skill tree makes the monk an absolute beast when it comes to harnessing elemental power, whether it's cold with the iconic I am Blizzard, or lightning with I am Thunder. The Invoker turns your monk into a pure elemental powerhouse, but it's not just about offense. Skills like and protect me from harm boost your physical damage reduction, which makes you tankier than you might expect. The only real downside, it's a bit gear dependent, and you've got to manage your resources carefully. On the flip side, we've got the Infernalist, which is a class with two very different playstyles. You can either summon powerful minions like the Infernal Hellhound, a tanky companion that absorbs damage for you, or you can take a more risky, high-reward approach by embracing the Demon Form. Demon Form transforms you into a spell-slinging force of nature, but at the cost of draining your life. You've got to keep an eye on that health bar, but if you build right, you can absolutely obliterate enemies with your spells. The biggest drawback here is resource management in Demon Form, so it's not for the faint of heart. And if you're going the minion route, be aware that there's not as much flexibility in your build options as you might hope. Both Ascendancies offer incredible power, but the key to success lies in knowing which one fits your playstyle best. The Invoker is all about pure elemental domination, with some defensive buffs thrown in, while the Infernalist lets you choose between the safety of your minions or the high-risk, high-reward chaos of your demon form. Either way, you're looking at a class that can totally shape how you tackle content in Path of Exile 2. So, whether you like turning enemies into dust with lightning strikes or summoning hellish creatures to do your bidding, these Ascendancies are definitely worth a shot. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.